And welcome to the Monday episode of Beerfield Fantasy Shots. I am your host at Christopher Hopper, at Hop BFF, not at Christopher Hopper. Christopher Hopper would be my name. In this episode of Shots, we're going to bring you some top shelf and some well guys from week 3 of the preseason. Top shelf guys being your performers. Well guys, not so much. Just like if you walk into a bar, top shelf's the good shit. Well, not really where you want to go unless you're looking for a hangover. If you haven't checked out the news episode for today, we have decided on a little bit of a format switch. We're going to release these in 2 chunks, more so you guys can consume the content you want while avoiding the content that you don't. So we'll have a news segment, and then we'll kind of have a special segment. The special segments we plan on releasing throughout the season. We're going to do some DFS for you, some waiver guys, weekly top shelf and wells, some start sits. We'll have some injury takes on this. So stuff we'll be talking about on the regular podcast, but this is kind of your quick consumable of that. If you want more in-depth analysis, you can follow the podcast. You can listen to the podcast, subscribe, like us. We are on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict. Thank you. We can actually have a carrier pigeon drop a cassette tape off on your doorstep. Whatever your preferred method of consumption is, you search Beerfield Fantasy Football. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a follow on Twitter. Again, I am at Hot BFF. We have at Nick Sparts and at 3BFF, who are my co-host. So enough rambling about our shameless self-promotion. Let's get into some top shelf guys. All right, so my 3 top shelf guys for this week that kind of performed in preseason week 3 and showed us a little bit of something we didn't see. So first off, Jamaal Charles. Jamaal Charles was fighting for his roster spot. It's the first we've seen Jamaal Charles really on a football field in about 2 seasons or so. He looked good. He was getting himself into space. He was running patient. He was making people miss. He didn't look like he had the same quickness, but he still had the same shiftiness to him. And I think that a lot of that will come back, the more he gets on the field. But he looked good in his snaps. Broncos coach Vance Joseph came out and said that he did enough to make the 53-man roster. I quipped on today's episode, actually, I think, that he, maybe lock up his roster spot, but also up his trade value. But either way, Jamaal Charles looks like he's going to be back, and he's going to be a factor in the league this year. I bumped him up to my running back 3, but he did look good. For quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, Brian Hoyer was 12 for 17 for 176 yards and 2 touchdowns playing the first half. He didn't miss a pass. I think it was his first 2, maybe even 3 drives. He looked good spreading the ball around and finding guys downfield and in the short game. So he had a nice deep pass to Marquise Goodwin. He was hitting Garcon, hitting Carlos Hyde. Yeah, I have trouble with names on occasion. Hitting Carlos Hyde out in the flat. He was really, really good. So we've seen Hoyer flash whenever he's gotten the chance. His issue has been not being able to stay healthy. He was good with the Bears, going for over 300 yards in 4 straight games last year before he broke himself. He was good with the Texans the year before when he was on the field. So you really, if you're looking for a cheap guy in a 2-quarterback league, super flex, a fill-in for why Andrew Luck's out, Brian Hoyer's a guy that's almost free that you can get for that. So he really flashed, though, this preseason game after kind of an ugly show in the first 2 weeks. And then Chris Hogan was 4 for 70 with 2 touchdowns and showed why he still has some relevance, especially with the Edelman injury. So Chris Hogan, after Edelman went down, really stepped up. He looked really good. And Brady looked to trust him. There's a note that came out today that he also, that he has rapport with Amendola. So keep an eye on that situation. But Chris Hogan does still have relevance, and he's the guy that I actually did pick up and that I moved up the most from this. Also, just for a dynasty note here, because I'm talking about the Patriots, but Austin Carr put up his 3rd solid preseason game. Is a depth player. He's a type of receiver that, Bill Belichick and those guys like. So if you're on a rebuilding dynasty team, he's definitely worth the roster stash. I wouldn't do it in startup, and I wouldn't do it if you're built to win now. But if you're looking for a, kind of a PPR dart throw on a rebuilding team, hold on to that because he could work himself into something here sooner rather than later. And for the guys that kind of really stunk up the joint. So Jared Goff, we sang his praises, and then he follows it up with a pretty ugly performance. He was 5 for 8, but only for 56 yards. He looked generally out of sync with the offense. He threw a pick. He threw another couple balls that were just, I mean, when he missed bad. So he didn't look as in sync without Cooper Kupp. I'm not sure how much Cooper Kupp actually means to Jared Goff, but this was kind of what we'd seen from Goff last year when we got to see him versus, what we saw last week where he was really looked like a competent NFL quarterback. Derrick Henry, and I'm mostly doing this because we just had a podcast recording with Loaded Box where there was some Derrick Henry talk, so be sure you check that one out on Wednesday when that releases. It's a little bit of shameless self-promotion there, but Derrick Henry continues to struggle this preseason. I mean, he's consistent, if anything, 2.7 yards per carry this game, 2.7 yards per carry on everything this preseason. He's just not looked like the same guy destined to make DeMarco Murray's life hard and to breathe down his neck. So hopefully that gets better in the season, but he's been inefficient. But for what it's worth, the Bears front seven is good. DeMarco Murray also did struggle the 2.7 yards per carry as well. So keep your eye on that, though. But Derrick Henry, underwhelming. And then my third well guy for this week is Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor is a guy that we've really bumped up and become high on because of his potential and because when you looked at the peripherals, he actually didn't look like a boomer bust wide receiver. Him and Kirk Cousins look like they're still trying to get on the same page, though. There are a couple balls that were missed badly. He did have one acrobatic circus catch for 17 yards, which that catch was really nice, and it shows his ability in contested situations and to make the spectacular play. However, there are a couple more that either they weren't on the same page on, that were overthrown. I think he had one drop, so just something to keep an eye on there. I wouldn't freak out on Terrell Pryor yet. Don't lose your mind about it, but just not a good week for him. So if you get a slow start, stay the course because they're still trying to figure out how to work together. It will happen eventually, though. Cousins is too talented. Terrell Pryor is too talented, so just stay with that. That's all I got for Top Shelf and Well this week. We will be back tomorrow with another news segment, whatever Dan or Nick has planned for you. I have been your host for this week, for Monday, August 28th. I am at Hot BFF. Again, you can follow the show on Twitter at BeerfieldFF. Check out the podcast, Beerfield Fantasy Football, wherever podcasts are found. Thanks.